Let's talk about multiband compression. What it is, when to use it, how to use it. We've got demos coming up. That's next. From No Label, No Producer, No Limits.com, I'm Keith. Let's dive right in. So what is multiband compression? Well, with a normal compressor, a signal comes into the audio input, and any level above the threshold gets compressed. But with a multiband compressor, the signal comes into the audio input and then is divided into multiple frequency bands. Each of these bands has its own compressor. The best way to understand it is to see and hear it in action. So I'm going to call up ReXComp, which is Reaper's stock multiband compressor. And there's a link in the video description, or if you're on my website at the bottom of the page, which will take you to a free download of ReXComp. You can use it in your DAW. As you can see, it's divided up into 4 frequency bands. We might call them lows, low mids, high mids, and highs. As you can see, the first band goes from the lowest frequency up to about 200 hertz. The low mids go from 200 hertz to 1000 hertz, and you can see it here. The next band from 1000 hertz to 5000 hertz, and then from 5000 hertz on up. However, we're not stuck with these values. We can move these around as we desire. We can even add bands. There's an add band button here, or delete bands. And those bands correspond with these tabs down here. Each tab has a solo function. So let's take a listen to what these frequency ranges sound like. I've got a mix running here. Wearing all my clothes. So with ReXComp, we can compress any of those frequency ranges or all of those frequency ranges to our heart's desire. Now, as you can see, we also have the same controls that you would normally see on a compressor. We have a threshold here, ratio, attack time, release time, and over here on the right, an output gain. And here on the far right, we have an output gain for the whole compressor. Those are the basic controls to ReXComp, Reaper's stock multiband compressor. So that is multiband compression. You divide the signal up into multiple frequency bands, and then you can compress each one separately. When might we want to use a multiband compressor, and why? There are several reasons. One is anytime a frequency range is inconsistent. For instance, a vocalist who's sibilant or harsh in certain ranges, or a bass guitar that has a nice, solid, low end that disappears on some notes. We can use a multiband compressor to home in on the problem areas and get them to be more consistent. Another way of saying the same thing is for spectral or tonal balance. If you have a mix that sounds a little muddy, for instance, you can compress the low mids, lower the level just a touch, and maybe you'll take care of it. However, you can quickly get into trouble doing this, so do it judiciously. Okay, let's get to the demos. 7-sunken Sylvanian submarinist subsequently submerged Tuesday, tattling and telling tall tales of chasing cheery cheetahs. And that's why they call me One Take Keith. Okay, let's see if we can isolate the frequencies that contain the sibilants and tame them with a multiband compressor. This time I'm going to use the Reaper-only Toucan multiband processor. It'll do you good to see different controls and how they work, similarly to ReXComp. As you can see, it's got 4 bands right now set up here, And it has all the same controls that a typical compressor does. It has attack, release, ratio, threshold, knee, and up here an output. Each band also has a solo. So let's solo up the high mids and see if we can locate the sibilants. I'm going to put the narration there in a loop. Seven sunken Sylvanian submarinist. Seven sunken Sylvanian submarinist, subsequently submerged Tuesday, tattling and telling tall tales of chasing cheery cheetahs. Seven sunken Sylvanian submarinist, subsequently submerged Tuesday, tattling. Seven sunken Sylvanian submarinist, subsequently submerged Tuesday, tattling and telling tall tales of chasing cheery cheetahs. Seven sunken Sylvanian submarinist, subsequently submerged Tuesday, tattling and telling tall tales of chasing cheery cheetahs. Seven sunken Sylvanian submarinist, subsequently submerged Tuesday, tattling and telling tall tales of chasing cheery cheetahs. Seven sunken Sylvanian submarinist. Seven sunken Sylvanian submarinist. Seven sunken Sylvanian submarinist. Seven sunken Sylvanian submarinist. Okay, we soloed up band 3. We figured out where the majority of the energy of that sibilance came from. We're up here at maybe 3K. Probably could go a little higher than that. And on the high end, almost 9K. And then we adjusted the threshold to where the S's and the T's and the CH's triggered the compression. And we brought those levels down a little bit. That's how a de-esser works typically, and that's how we can use a multi-band compressor for a de-esser, although in this case, the other bands aren't active, so it's really a band compressor and not a multi-band compressor. Okay, we have a bass track here. Let's take a quick listen to it. That second to last note, do-do-do-do-do, seems to ring through. The ultra lows seem to disappear a little bit in some of the rest of the notes. Let's see if we can't get some more consistent low end using Re-X Comp. Going to load it up on this bass track, and let's isolate the low end. I'm looking for the lowest of the lows here, the real pump. You know, a low E string on a standard tuned bass is about 42 hertz. So there's some energy down there that I'm interested in. We'll solo it up. That's what I'm looking for. Now we can control the threshold by either pulling this down or grabbing this fader here and pulling it down. Let's see if we can get some good compression happening. I'm going to slow the attack time down just a bit. I've got auto makeup gain on. Let's turn this on and off and see if it makes a big difference volume-wise. It seems a little louder with auto makeup gain on. I'll tell you what though, I'm going to push this so that you can hear what it sounds like. We're going to push the gain here on this band and then turn Re-X Comp on and off. I'm coming down about 4 or 5 dB at the top. So, but let's go up 7 or 8 dB. If you've got a good set of speakers or headphones that reach down into those frequency ranges, you'll be able to hear that with Re-X Comp on now, the low end is more solid and constant. Now there's some stuff right above that that I don't like, that I think is a little bit muddy. So let's find this range here. I'm going to solo up the second band. That second to the last note, doo 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 doo. We got a fairly low ratio here, so let's pump this up and see if we can't take that second to last note down a little bit. Yeah, it's hitting it around 4 or 5 dB, and the other notes are 1 or 2 dB. Yeah, so we can pull that back just a touch, and let's hear those two things. So we've got a more solid low lows and a less muddy, little bit higher range. Let's hear those two compared. Okay, I think we've got a lot better bass sound happening here. We have tamed the low end, made it more consistent, more powerful. Of course, we'd have to hear it in the context of the mix, but that's how you might use a multi-band compressor on a bass guitar to get a more solid, powerful low end. Now, we've already seen how multi-band compression can tighten up the low end on a bass guitar. Well, you could do the same thing on an entire mix. Let's focus on another area. I've got this mix running through a mix bus, and I'm going to add Re-X Comp. Let's focus on a sparkly high end. I'm going to solo up the high band, turn off the auto makeup gain, and let's listen to what's going on.
Philistines, they're all Philistines.
What I want to focus on here is just the high sparkle, so I'm going to narrow this band up near the top, and we'll just try to get this sheen and shimmer that's up here.
Philistines, they're all Philistines. Watch 'em go. Though somewhere somebody knows just what they know. And it gives me pause to think that a Philistine could be wearing all my clothes, filling me with food and drink. Yeah, another man could be wearing all my clothes, wearing all my cannibals, they're all criminals. See 'em run. Though somewhere somebody knows just what they've done. And it gives me pause to think that a criminal could be wearing all my clothes.
So what I've done here is I've compressed a little bit of the high end. I've got a fast attack and a fast release. And I've boosted the gain up just a little bit. We're taking off about 3 dB at the very most here with the compressor. So I've boosted a little more than 3 dB. And take a listen to the cymbal crashes as I turn this off and on. Do you hear how those cymbal crashes have come out a little bit? Let's boost it up even a little bit more. So that's one way to bring out the sparkle and the high end of a mix. Now let's take a look at the low mids. I'm going to turn off the auto makeup gain. As you've already seen, that can get me into trouble. And let's dial this band in and see if we can control the amount of warmth in the mix.
Filling me with food and drink. Yeah, another man could be wearing all my clothes, wearing all my clothes.
So what I did there was just compressed these low mids a little bit, 1 or 2 dB. I didn't do any makeup gain, which means even though these will be more consistent, they'll be down a little bit from where they were. I think the mix is just a touch muddy, and this should help. I've got a little bit slower attack and release time. In general, as you go from low to high band, your attack and release times will get faster. So slow attack and release on the low, a little bit faster on the low mids, and so on as you go up. So what we've done is we've decreased the muddiness just a little bit, and we've added a little bit of sparkle on the high end with a multiband compressor, and this is on the mix bus. Let's take a listen to the difference.
Filling me with food and drink. Yeah, another man could be wearing all my clothes, wearing all my clothes.
And that's one way to use a multiband compressor. It's to change the spectral balance of your mix. If you'll look below the video, you'll see an article or a link to an article with more in-depth information about multiband compression, and it includes download links for any of the resources mentioned in this video. If you're watching so far, obviously you've found the content valuable. So in order not to miss out, like, subscribe, share, comment, ring the bell if you're on YouTube. It's really a vote for the kind of content that you want to see in the future. Well, that's multiband compression. I'm Keith from No Label, No Producer, No Limits.com. See you soon. Bye-bye.